Thank you, Upatisa, and I'd like to thank Father Null also. I There's a lot I could share. There's actually a lot, uh, very much. So I'm going to try to condense it. Um, I started out life with several medical complications. By the time I was 4, I had a pretty serious digestive complication, and I had to be rushed to the hospital. And they accidentally ruptured my colon in an examination and became septic. During surgery, I ended up having my first near death experience. It was incredibly warm, familiar, peaceful, loving, and honestly, I didn't want to come back. Coming back from that, even being age 4, it changed me. And as I was a child and a teenager, I just had a lot of compassion, love, compassion, peace. I wasn't afraid to get to know people or to talk to strangers. Yet, I lived in Philadelphia, um, first through sixth grade, first through fifth grade. Sixth grade, we moved to the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I went to a new Catholic school. There was a nun that, for some reason, she decided because of the color of my hair and my looks that, as she said, I was a problem. I was a problem for the boys and for the girls because I was caught, my looks and my hair caused too much attention. So she chased me with scissors to cut my hair, and then she started locking me in the closet for the day. And it was pretty traumatizing. So my mother took me out of the school and put me into a new school. That year, when I went to the new school, there were 10 boys that I was coming out of the library and through the halls and out into the parking lot outside the football field to make my way home. And 10 boys grabbed me and dragged me into the boys' bathroom. So I was sexually assaulted and I ran home. So I was even more traumatized. Yet at the same time, and I do think this is because of the near death experience when I was 4, one of the immediate reactions was I just couldn't understand this kind of behavior or action from people. So I sought I was seeking to understand what were they missing? What happened to them that they didn't understand love or didn't know love? Yet at the same time, I was pretty traumatized. So that led me to a few couple years in high school. I couldn't handle being around the people, the boys that did this, and I didn't report it to anyone because this was back in the early 80s. And so I didn't think anyone would believe me, though I did tell my parents. I just ended up going down a path that wasn't very good for me. And I started drinking and just for about 2 years when on the weekends when I would go out with my friends. That really led down not a good path. But when I was with my friends, we had gone to a concert and we were getting ready to leave, and a woman came up to me and she looked older than she was. I knew she was younger than she was. And something in me just kept saying, this woman, it may be an angel and she's coming to give me a message. She asked me for money. I could tell that she was an addict and that she was living a very, very hard life. So that from that moment on, I didn't drink anymore and I didn't go to parties anymore. I was 17 at that time. Then right after that, I ended up in a serious car accident. I was a passenger. We hit a tree on an embankment and the car tumbled and everything around me was coming in except for it was like a little box. I had glass from the neck down and something went through my head and through my leg. The driver almost died, and um, the police officer said that there's there was no reason that we should have survived. So that was another, it was a wake-up call because I actually I experienced the accident out of my body and above and looking down. So after that happened, it brought me it brought an awareness and memory to what happened when I was 4 years old. During From the time I was little all the way through, I always had love for God. I just couldn't understand what was happening in my life. The nun, the boys, attacking me, it was such a contrast, I couldn't reconcile it. So, after the car accident when I was 17, I became very, I would say that's when I started becoming more contemplative. I started writing, I started spending time in nature. I spent a lot of time with my parents and started to go within more deeply. And then graduated high school. I was working and going to college. And all throughout, I also had a lot of health challenges. I did get married and had my own business. And while I was married and running my business, many things happened. And I was also still trying to complete school. So it most likely was too much for my body, but I ended up getting really sick and pretty much on the edge of life for a while. And by that time, this is almost 30 years ago, I was in the ICU. I had been in and out of the hospital so many times. And a few times they said I wasn't going to make it. Then at one point, I was in the ICU and they gave me 3 days left to live. And I became so surrendered. I just, my husband at the time gave me divorce papers when I was in the ICU. And even with that, I didn't have animosity or anger. It hurt, but I really surrendered to God. I just had this peace I can't even explain. And I said yes. I said yes to anything because I really didn't know what was going to happen. The only thing that I asked, I didn't want to die in the hospital. So I asked my mother and my doctor if I could die at my mother's. And my mother and father, to their credit, I mean, it's a lot of courage to say yes. They took me home. That was almost 30 years ago. And so I slept a lot. That was part of the healing, was a lot of sleeping. In that time, though, that's when I started having a lot of experiences. I call it intimacy with Jesus. He actually started showing himself to me and started speaking to me. And at one point, there more was happening. And I remember that I had been crying and just kind of shouting out to him, I don't understand why I'm still here. It just seems it's suffering, that there's so much suffering in my life. I really was crying. I said, it's all suffering, and I don't know why I'm here. I fell to my knees. I was crying so hard, I fell to my knees. And he came before me and he said, it was a peace that washed over me. Peace doesn't even really speak to it, but he said, while he was looking at me, he said, do not miss me in your striving. He said, I do not see you as broken. I'm not looking for perfection. My grace is always with you. And in that instant, there was, it was like a return to, I say a return to innocence. Sometimes it was a return to this pure love and pure peace and understanding. And in that moment, or from that moment, I could never look at anyone or see anyone as broken. I still don't. It's like it corrected my lens. And then as time went on, Jesus was doing some more things in my life. And I would say that I thought that I knew what love was. I thought I understood love, and I realized I didn't. And there was so much that happened that was very humbling also. But I just simply realized that this divine love is so unconditional, it's so pure, and it really brings, just this astounding peace and a way, it's like he showed me that I used to think love was allowing someone or something to be a part of me, and yet it this showed me that everything is a part of me already. It's like he brought me into one, to understanding one, and I guess I'll just repeat that the most beautiful and humbling thing was when he said, "I do not see you as broken." And I still can't, I don't see anyone as broken. So thank you.